Welcome to Combat Theory Presents, a weekly podcast about all things martial arts, fight science, and combat sports. I'm your co-host, Sammy Ryan, and our latest episode starts now.
All right, what's up, guys? This is Paul, the evil Professor Antonelli. I'm joined to my left by Robert Spazzy Mangillo. Say what's up, Robert.
What's up, man?
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
He already hates me.
So, this
Come
is
on,
so
man.
bad already. Okay.
Listen, man, you got to kick it off.
To my right on your camera, if you're watching on YouTube, is the very lovely Sammy Ryan. Say hello, Sammy.
Hello, welcome back.
You're here, Sammy. Say hello here.
Hello.
Hey, welcome back, guys.
All the cameras.
This is the best intro ever.
Yeah,
Flail
we've
my
already
arms
failed.
around.
And we're joined today by special guest, Coach Rich Grindle. Hey, Rich, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
What do you think of the podcast room? Kind of cool.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's amazing what an insane amount of money will get you. So, Rich, you are our guest today. Welcome. You wear many hats, obviously, in the martial arts industry. But tell us a little bit about how you got started in martial arts.
I always jokingly tell people I was brainwashed into it. Being a kid from the 90s, you had Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles, all those things, the Three Ninjas. So as a boy, you're just always pushed into like ninja shit. So then that got me into karate, which I got kicked out of pretty early on for fighting. And then years later in high school, a kickboxing gym opened up across the street. So that was a pretty easy transition.
So your first martial art was kickboxing?
Kickboxing, yeah. American kickboxing.
Yeah,
right?
like kicking above the waist.
Yeah, they didn't do a lot of low kicks, right? Chuck Norris stuff. If you watch Chuck Norris fights.
Was Chuck there?
No, but Don Wilson was.
Oh, okay.
Who's like
All
a
right.
pretty
Yeah,
notable guy.
Everybody knows
yeah.
Don the Dragon Wilson.
Yeah, so I got to do a few seminars with him when I was a teenager, so that was great.
That's
yeah.
super cool. That's super cool. I think that's funny too, because I think most I'm same thing. I'm a product. I'm a kid of the '80s, so I got involved in martial arts because of Karate Kid. So that for me was like the best kind of like if I didn't want to get bullied, I was going to take karate, and then kind of similar to I think a lot of people that got involved in now like Muay Thai or American kickboxing. It wasn't enough, or it didn't interest them that much, and then they kind of move on to I don't want to say more realistic forms of competitive fighting, but just more maybe counter for counter forms of competing. Now you also did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a brown belt technically.
Why do you say technically?
I always find it weird because like I got promoted to brown belt and then I took like 3 or 4 years off, so I feel like a white belt now.
No, I hear you. I understand completely.
But then I'll roll for a minute. And I'm like, oh, I know something. Like, oh shit,
I think I've done this before.
Yeah. I recently did get back into messing around.
Yeah,
but it's not my favorite. If I were to be honest.
I feel like nowadays, especially people that are involved in whether it's competitive fighting, they feel like they need to be involved in multiple disciplines, and but ultimately they always have a favorite. I can always say to them like, "Well, which one do you like the most?" And even guys that have been doing from the beginning have been doing all of these like wrestling, jiu-jitsu, striking. They always have one thing that they're just like, that for me is the thing that I like to do. Where did you start training? Was it in Orlando?
Where?
Yeah.
So I'm from Merritt Island.
Okay.
Which is next to Cocoa Beach. So growing up, I just tell people like I'm from Cocoa Beach. But
easier.
Yeah, Merritt Island is a small space between, Orlando and Cocoa Beach. So that's where the kickboxing gym opened up, was across from the Merritt Island High School. And that was ran by Donnie Hare. I don't know if you ever remember hearing that name back in the day.
No.
But he ran a couple different gyms. It was one of those things where he'd open it up, it closed down, he'd open another. But the main coach I worked with there was a guy named Phil Collins, not the
famous Phil Collins.
Correct. Yeah, the ninja Phil Collins, not the fat singer.
What if it turned out all these years that Phil Collins was just a badass?
Yeah.
And that he was writing songs, but he was also kicking ass.
Absolute killer.
Ran a school, not telling people, it was like a secret.
I would brag a lot more about my first coach.
No, but that would be like the thing though, right? He'd
Yeah.
be like, you can never tell people that Phil Collins is training you.
Well, people ask me about my workout playlist all the time, and there's a significant amount of Phil Collins on it.
Well, there you go.
in the air tonight is about me, guys.
So now you live in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
How did you end up going from like Coco to Orlando?
So was in Brevard for my first 4 or 5 years of martial arts. Then I moved to Tampa, where my mom had moved.
Sure.
So I was training out there. I bounced around gym to gym. I stayed at this XFC gym. Do you remember XFC?
No, I remember XFC. Yes.
Short-lived promotion.
Yes.
Yeah. So they had their own gym, and it was like, it attracted fighters, but it wasn't like what I would call like a good gym to like develop in. And after that, I just went to Orlando. I went to the Jungle. I saw them online, and I was like, that seems cool.
I don't think we can get away with an episode where we don't say the Jungle.
The Jungle. I mean,
I wish that we could.
In all due respect, they're one of the OG gyms in town. They've lasted over 10 years, which is pretty hard in our business. So you got to give them those respects. And, almost every black belt in here in Orlando comes from Tiago. I mean, there's a lot of them.
That's interesting, though. Why do you think it is that it's like gyms generally don't seem to be able to stay in business very long? Why is that, do you think?
We talk about this on the side. I don't know. It seems like on paper, a gym should be able to teach classes. People enjoy the classes. They keep coming. They pay their membership. Why would that not succeed?
It's hard to build a culture that supports both high-level athletes and that is also inclusive for people who are getting into it.
Yeah.
It's hard to teach people who are already pretty high level and people who have almost no skills in trying to bridge the gap in between the two.
I think that's interesting because like one of the things that we're seeing now is like some of the higher level striking coaches that are just kind of like going back to teaching in their garage. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, I'm just going to teach a few fighters and I'm not going to really try to commercialize my business. As an entrepreneur first, I want to believe that you can do both and be successful because I would really have trouble separating those two groups for me, because I think ultimately what happens is if you have guys that are training in the gym that want to compete, I don't want them to feel like, oh, if I'm going to compete, I have to leave here. And at the same time, I think that everyday people want to, I think they enjoy, I think one of the reasons that I see so many people wearing American Top Team shirts is because even though you might train in an American Top Team that's a smaller location, you like the idea that, that person that you're seeing fighting out of American Top Team is fighting out of your gym, even though maybe you've never met them and they don't even train at the location that you train at, and it's owned by two different people.
Yeah. No, I think that's a huge part of successful businesses know how to market to the masses, right? I do believe you could have a very niche gym and be very successful, but if you're trying to be like marketing to the masses, but you're a niche spot, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
You have to kind of know where your ceiling's at,
Now, when you were training martial arts, you got into competition. What was that like? What was the decision that you decided to start competing?
So, first sport that I really fell in love with was rugby.
Okay.
I grew up playing rugby in Brevard County, and then I got into coaching a little bit.
All right.
So, even though I was doing martial arts on the side, around the time I was like 18, I was coaching rugby a lot. I was like, I want to coach. Well, that wasn't an option for like a white kid from Florida. United States rugby is kind of a joke, so like all the high level coaches are from New Zealand, Australia, name somewhere else. So I was like, well, I can't coach this. These martial arts nerds, they're pretty bad, so I can probably coach them, but I don't have any competition experience.
Okay.
So then therefore I was like, well, let me spend the next few years competing, and then I can learn to kind of teach. Also, at that same time, Ultimate Fighter was getting really popular.
Sure.
So there's a lot less nerds in martial arts and a lot more athletes. So my transition to competition was like, I wasn't as athletic as I thought I was, comparatively speaking.
This is also we've never been able to do an episode where someone hasn't said the Ultimate Fighter. We should keep track of that. A side note, shout out to all the people that are in USA Rugby. I'm sorry for Rich's comments. I'm sure that you guys are badasses.
Oh, they'll murder me. But
we have so many US Rugby fans watching the show right now. I don't even know how to.
Straight up though, they can't fight.
Oh my God!
I will.
Don't come at me, Rugby. I'm sorry. I don't.
They
know
punch like
anything
this. They punch like this.
What?
He would know.
I mean, yeah, it's not me, man. I don't do rugby. I'm sorry. did you compete in kickboxing first?
No, MMA.
Really?
Yeah, MMA
wow.
first. Yeah.
Okay, that's a big jump.
It is a big jump, and it's a stupid one.
How old were you?
First fight
In
22.
22.
22. So yeah.
What year was that?
Oh, fuck. 10 years ago, so it's 2022. So
like 2012.
2012, yeah.
Was it you were right into what was the rule set then? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. So they just made amateur MMA a thing in Florida. So then they had this weird rule where it was like, you don't have to wear shin guards, but you can throw you can't throw head kicks.
If you're not wearing shin guards.
But you can wear shin guards and throw head kicks.
There was no ground and pound?
No ground and pound.
Yeah. Okay, guys, if you're watching and you're outside of Florida and you're a fan, I think it's important to understand this. Almost every state has a different rule set where they compete once. So some states, I should say, they allow you can compete amateur with or without headgear. Or there's some states where you don't have to wear shin guards. There's some states where you do have to wear shin guards. Recently in Florida, we just started to allow elbows. There's some debate about that still for amateur fighting. We can talk about that later if you want. But, as the sport is evolving, and even guys, if you look at like on the regional scene on the pro level, there's some people are using unified rules. Some people are still using other rule sets. Like it's complicated. So right into MMA, what was, how'd you do?
That one I won.
Yeah.
And then I think I dropped the next 3 fights. And then I think I did my first Muay Thai fight. It was supposed to be an MMA fight. And I actually recently posted about it on my Instagram for combat night. It was supposed to be an MMA fight. The kid didn't bring his blood work. You got to do blood work for MMA. But for some reason, Muay Thai, you don't have to do blood work. So they're like, we'll make it a Muay Thai fight if that's cool with y'all. And I was like, yeah. Like I didn't know that was an option.
It was available.
Yeah, like really, like there was no Muay Thai around.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm down. And the kid said his coach made him do it. He was a wrestler, but he's like, oh, you're gonna do this. Like you didn't show up and not fight today.
That's one of the things that I ran into when I was training early on is that in Florida especially, like there wasn't a lot of Muay Thai competition. There were gyms that did Muay Thai, but it was very hard to find. Like I remember at one point they were doing like sport Muay Thai, where the rules were really, really weird. Like you weren't allowed. It's kind of like we'll talk about later, but kind of like PKB is now, and that was hard. So a lot of guys, they would have to leave the state, or they would do like IKF, the World Classic, or they would do stuff like that where you could do like Muay Thai, some version of Muay Thai. But yeah, man, that you've met one, Brea, one of my athletes and my friend. He got really mad one time because he went to a competition, and like when he was getting checked out by the doctor after weigh-ins, the doctor was like, "Oh, do you have your blood work?" And he's like, "Oh no, I don't." And the doctor was like, "Oh, are you fighting? Are you kickboxing or are you real fighting?" And he was like, "What do you mean? You saying kickboxing is not real fighting?"
Yeah.
That's classic. So then you transitioned into coaching. Where did you coach at first?
The Jungle.
Yeah.
I was there for maybe 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And then my very first student is actually Rodney.
Okay.
You met Rodney Rampersad.
Who's fighting? When is Rodney fighting?
March 19th.
March 19th. Okay,
Yeah.
so really,
Like
by the time this
3
episode
weeks.
posts, it's going to be like
Yeah.
Will that be
5
Combat
days
Night?
or something.
Yeah, Combat Night.
Combat
yeah.
Night in Orlando?
Yeah.
CombatNight.com, guys. Sam,
Yeah.
are you going to ring girl that event?
I will be the ring girl for that event.
Oh, so if you are
Ooh.
listening, go to CombatNight.com and you can buy tickets to watch Rodney fight. And the very famous Sammy Ryan will be there, and I have 2 or 3 people, including my man right here, Robert Spazzy Mangillo.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything stupid this time, but yeah.
Hey, that's exciting to hear, Robert. Thank you for
Awesome.
letting us know that you're not going to do anything dumb.
But you have to
Yes.
live up to the nickname.
No, I'm gonna live up for Fight of the Night, but not Spazzy. Everyone hates that guy. Oh my god! No.
Well, I'm excited to give you a medal.
Thank you.
There we go. So Rodney was your first student.
Yeah, so I always accredit him to like and another guy named Brett who now lives in Arizona, so no one cares. But But he's dope too. But I would work with those guys outside of class on the side, and they got good to where when they went to the pro classes, they started like getting noticed from the other coaches. And I think that's when they started asking me like, do you want to teach kickboxing?
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
that's what got me into teaching.
Very, very cool.
Which honestly was my plan the whole time. Like I said, I coached playing rugby, and I was like, all right, how do I transition this to martial arts? If I compete and win, people are going to want to take my classes. Obvious, right? Well, I wasn't winning, but I would I would do well, and then, you know, people I would teach would do well, and then that kind of transition to coaching.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, it all works out if you just keep doing it.
You just keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's weird that if you just keep showing up, it typically will be successful.
Many people quit in any endeavor.
Yeah.
Like, if you just keep going, most people will quit by the time you're on top.
I was trying to explain this to my students the other day where it's like, we all want to quit. Like, you always want to quit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every day something in my head tells me like, that first 5 minutes that I'm awake on some days and I'm like, oh, my knee hurts, my back hurts, my fingers hurt, my hand hurts. Maybe I'll just stay in bed today. Like, I think everyone gets that. The choice is that you have to go ahead and you have to say like, I'm not going to stay in bed. I'm going to go do whatever it is I have to do today. Or, man, that guy just hit me really, really hard, but I'm okay. And I have to keep pushing forward. You know, like Jack Dempsey said that a champion gets up when he can't. And I think that's very, very true with fighting, is that you're yes, you know that it's hard, but you have to keep pushing forward. Yeah. But you're right. Everyone, I mean, you know, that old saying, a black belt's just a white belt that didn't quit.
Yeah.
It's way oversaid, but I mean, it's factually super, super true. Because I was, if you're watching at home, I was the worst guy in my class when I first started. I was terrible. And now somehow I make my entire living teaching kickboxing, Muay Thai, and striking. So I don't know, dude. Good luck to you. You're not that bad. You can't be worse than I was.
I think that's like common though. Like, because you do bad for a while, you keep learning because you keep coming. You're not gonna keep failing and getting messed up and then like stop coming and be like, all right.
I think it also gives you like an opportunity to like just learn so much more. You know, you can't learn if you've never lost.
Yeah,
You have to be hungry.
I definitely believe you can stay in top. You can keep winning and keep educating yourself. But losses or even like adversities, really,
You learn a lot more from.
yeah, you draw from that experience so many more benefits than if you just went out and dominated. Which, when we get to talking about fighting, I want all my guys to dominate.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think that often when I'm talking to my athletes, the ones that are just really super naturally gifted, and I ask them like why they did that transition or why they move that way, a lot of times they can't verbalize that or explain it. That's what they came naturally to them. That's what they, for whatever reason, that's just how they wanted to do it. And I think sometimes that prevents you from being like a really good like coach or instructor, because like if you kind of suck, you got to really think about like, why am I going to do it this way? Or how many steps do I have to take before I can get there? Or
Why is this more efficient than that?
yeah. And if you're doing that all the time, eventually you can teach a lot better. I've known world champions that couldn't teach their way out of a brown paper bag. And I've known dudes that lost 10 fights that
Put it together so well in conversation.
that could literally paint Picasso by number.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, no, you got to move here. That's step 2. Step 3, you're going to push. Step 4, you're going to throw your leg over. You're like, oh, okay. Versus the other guy that just smashed past and can't really explain how he did
Just
it
do
way.
that, guys.
Yeah,
do that.
okay, just do it that way. Thanks. Try it 100 times.
Okay, you guys saw it? That's it. Go. You know? Who needs to see it one more time? All right.
So you eventually started coaching in Las Vegas.
Yeah. So I was at the Jungle in total, like 9 years, 8 or 9 years.
Just for those at home, no one that does martial arts can add. I just want you guys to know that.
Oh, I'm terrible with math.
We literally stopped to add 4 and 4.
We've all been hit in the head a lot at this point.
What's your name again?
Yeah. It's just one skill you learn. You learn how to fight, but you can't do basic addition.
Yeah, no. I have a joke that none of my people can count past a 4 count.
Yeah.
So just throw a 4 count on it.
Yeah, so anyways, I did go to Vegas. So I was at the Jungle. Then we had kind of like a time where a bunch of us coaches there, pretty much all the coaches left, and 2 of them started their own gyms. I went with Aaron from Iron Life, Karinga, as most people call him. I call him Aaron because that's his name. But anyways, I was at Iron Life for about 6 months, and long story short, I got offered an opportunity to be John Wood's understudy at Syndicate.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
So one of the former coaches at the Jungle is Tom Lawler, and he was training out of Syndicate at the time. So basically through him, I got offered this opportunity. So I went out to Vegas, very little money, ran out of all that money. Before they even started paying me, I probably studied under John for about 3 months, and then they gave me a teaching job.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. A little scary, though, huh?
Oh, absolutely. I got heat exhaustion. And right at the time they started like having me work with the pros and stuff, I tore my knee, which I've never done before. And that really set me back a little bit. So it was a good experience, and it was a lot at once.
What do you think was what do you think was the thing that when you went out to Vegas was the most startling or the most different?
Just the climate.
Yeah, for sure.
As lame as that is, like Vegas is like the way I looked at it. Like I remember getting off the bus my first day, going to Syndicate, walking about a mile or so, and I'm like, this doesn't seem real. I feel like because of the mountains, you're like in a petri dish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we don't belong here. I don't know why humans live here. This is definitely an experiment, right? And it's so hot, 115 degrees my first day, 117 the second, 120 the third. I was like, they're killing us. They're trying to kill us by putting Vegas out here.
We just had like the almost exact opposite experience. Robert, Sammy and I just got back from Vegas. We did a Thai camp in Vegas. Shout out Thai camp in Vegas. How are you guys doing out there? It was February, so it was like 40
perfect weather,
at night, and 70 during the day, and it was just so weird.
The petri dish analogy was definitely present in my mind.
Yeah.
With all of the mountains surrounding the area, it just kept like looping this like
I didn't know
sci-fi B movies.
Yeah,
like
I didn't
one
know
human colony.
I didn't know it was just that. Like in my mind, I saw Vegas on the TV, and it's like this giant, beautiful city, and like, no, it's just like literally like
just the strip.
Yeah,
one circle.
And then like you're surrounded by mountains.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like a video game, like Tekken.
They keep adding on like neighborhoods,
Yeah.
but it's just like you said, it's the strip and then a bunch of neighborhoods.
And the neighborhoods
mountains.
are all this nondescript color, so it's like there's this stark contrast between like everything else and like the strip. So it almost mutes how many other like houses and stuff are there. But yeah, we went out to Red Rock, like Red Rock Canyon or whatever that is. And I guess they had filmed like one of the Mars movies out there. And I was like, oh, 100%. Like this looks like I hike in Florida and it's completely flat. And you're in a swamp. And we were hiking.
Couldn't be any more different.
It was like, this is a different world. Like we literally spent.
It felt fake. It felt like looking out into the horizon. I'm like, that's painted.
That's
not
movie
real.
set.
Yeah, for sure.
We spent like an hour, 2 hours out in Red Rocks, literally just like on the same 3 rocks, just standing and taking.
Let me ask you
here.
Let me ask you, how many animals did you see?
In Vegas?
Thankfully, none.
No,
that's what I'm saying.
There's no animals there.
That's what I'm saying. Like
there's no
hated
animals
that.
in Vegas.
You go hike here, you can't help but run into all types of critters and insects. You go there, it's like there's nothing here.
Why is that? Because it's the desert?
Yeah,
yeah.
It's just life doesn't.
I'm such a Florida boy. I don't
See,
know.
I was gonna say that's how much I know. Like nothing, by the way. Which is like I'm worried about snakes. Like everyone's climbing, like on this ridge. I'm like I'm gonna just take my chances through this bush right here.
Yeah, you're fine.
I was so sad we didn't run into any mountain sheep. I was very excited about the mountain sheep.
I have a joke on that, but I'm going to keep it completely to myself. All right. So roughly how long were you in Vegas?
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years.
Yeah, it was like 2.5, and then like 2.5 that I was at Syndicate teaching. There's a few months after that I was just there.
What was the difference between like being at Syndicate, like a kind of really well known gym, versus being at like a gym here that you would come from?
A lot and not a lot. Like it's martial arts, so there's always going to be you have your
That
you have your MMA guys, you have your jiu-jitsu guys, you have your Muay Thai guys, and you have just the fitness people, right? But it's just on a larger scale and at a higher level, right? Like Vegas attracts people from everywhere. So you're getting the top guys from Montana, the top guys from Utah, the top guys from New York, like everyone goes to Vegas. It's very uncommon, at least when I was there, to see people who are like born and raised Vegas.
Yeah.
This is the gym I've been at. There are few, like Syndicate's one of the few gyms that is known to build guys from 0 amateurs to UFC level, but not every gym there does that.
What is that like? Because like in most like local gyms, there's those maybe one person or two people that are like top level, and then there's a lot of people that are not. And then when you go to these like Syndicate or Extreme Couture or some of these like really well known, maybe Sanford MMA, ATT Coconut Creek, everybody is that guy, or everybody is
top level, and just if you don't know them yet, you're probably going to hear about them soon. What was that like?
So that's one thing that I caught on to pretty quickly was like, oh, like as a local Orlando gym or like, you know, anywhere really, you had your head coach of the gym and he was your head coach, right? And then he was also probably your striking coach, and there's also a good chance he might have been one way or another your grappling coach. So they like wore many hats for you. In Vegas, it seems like you have the gym's head coach, and then you also have your head coach. So then the head coach of the gym you're at might not necessarily be your head coach. You might be paying someone to look at you specifically. And even weirder, sometimes that coach is actually a coach at another gym.
Wow, that's so...
So then you have like the head coach of another gym coming into your gym, and he's coaching one of your fighters. So it's a lot more like business oriented, to where out here or in other places I've been where it's like, you know, like everything's very emotional. Like, that's my guy. Why are you talking to my guy? Don't steal my fighter type of thing.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, this guy's here. Well, he's bringing our fighter wins, and I don't have the time to work with all these individuals. It was very cliquey, you know, like you had like, oh, those are so-and-so's guys, but we're all on the same team. You know what I'm saying?
Super weird.
So like I was in charge of the amateurs for a while, but like not every amateur. Like like some of them, they're just like, oh, I do my jiu-jitsu here and I do my striking here, but like, can you corner me? I'm like, dude, I don't know you. Like,
how do you feel? That's interesting. That's an interesting kind of segue, because you wear a lot of hats. You were a competitor. You're a coach. You judge fights. And now we'll talk about later, but you're also promoting events. How do you feel about cross-training like that? Do you feel like you should be trying to be one gym, one team, or do you feel like you should be jumping around, hopping around?
I'm still figuring out how I feel.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, so like that's the weird thing about martial arts compared to like team sports. Team sports have been around longer and they've been analyzed more. So like there's a lot more formula. Like we need a defensive coach, a counter coach, like
special teams,
all types of coaches down the line to cover every position and then some. And then those players have also specific strength and conditioning coaches and this and that. So it's a lot more like analytical in that sense, to where like now
it's already figured out.
Yeah. So like now it's like we're starting to see that in martial arts, MMA, even in Muay Thai gyms, but a lot of times it's like all on one coach.
Yeah.
And I think that is a lot to expect from a person, but also I don't feel a lot of these gyms can afford coaches. You know what I'm saying?
If you're a, you know, like I say that if you take the most successful people and you look at how many people are around them, like, you know, like LeBron James, shout out LeBron if you're listening and want to be on the show, you know, come by, bro. If you look at like LeBron James, he's got a coach for his team. He's got a sports specific coach, probably that is like, you know, teaching him how to film, like showing him film and talking about whatever. He's got a financial advisor. He might have a sports psychologist. He might have a licensed mental health counselor dealing with his problems outside of the gym. He's got an agent. He's got a lawyer. He's got a media manager. You know, he's got all of these components that make him successful, right? So I definitely, I know that when I'm coaching an amateur or a young professional, sometimes I'm like everything. I'm their striking coach. I'm cornering them. I'm teaching them the few things that I know in MMA. I'm their lawyer. I'm their doctor. I'm their accountant. I'm their bag holder. I'm sometimes their mom, their dad, their boyfriend. Like, and I don't actually have any of those roles in real life.
Right.
You know, it's not like I'm coaching them and they're my kid, but I'm responsible for them. So that is super weird. You know, as you get more money, you're able to, and as our sport evolves, obviously there's more people that are a little more like specific in roles, you know, but I have trouble with, personally, my personal opinion is I don't really like guys to train at a bunch of gyms. Now, I say this all the time. I'm not the source. I did not create Muay Thai. I did not create striking. I have no problem with you learning and developing and all this other stuff. I just don't really like when, you know, guys at one gym on Monday, a different gym on Tuesday, a different gym on Wednesday, a different gym on Thursday. Initially, I think we're going to do a later episode about this, but I think that, like, I call those guys Ronin. I'm like, yo, they have no master. They just jump around. Like, sometimes they actually get better faster because they're seeing so many different things from so many different people. But I think it limits their potential to be successful sometimes towards the end. Because if no one's ultimately looking out for them or worried about them or even just kind of being honest with them, it's hard. If I see some guy one time a week, like, am I going to really tell him, like, yo, dude, like, you have a problem here? Or am I just going to be like, well, let me collect my check on Monday?
Yeah. No, and I agree. Like, I feel like a lot of guys thrive in a team atmosphere, and then a lot of guys don't because they want to be the center of attention. And if there's other guys who are working their way up, and then now they're getting a little attention. So I feel like in our sport specifically, the team aspect is massive as a whole.
Yeah.
But then as guys rank up in competition, they probably, I don't want to say should because everyone's different, but they probably should look to like make their circle a little smaller. Not spar with the guy that's, you know, 2 feet taller than them, or, you know, go clinch with the teenagers or something. Unless, like, you're like, hey, you need to practice sweeps, go clinch with the teenagers. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
throw those guys in their head.
Yeah.
For a while.
I'm sweeping everybody in the room.
So, like, as you know, like,
come here, kid.
I coach 2 guys right now. I don't have a team.
Yeah.
I don't have, like, you know, bodies essentially. So what that does for me is, like, I'm having to take a lot of the beatings. I'm having to, you know, always be involved and stuff like that. I don't get to really, like, sit back and be like, oh, like,
you're not watching.
Yeah, I'm not watching.
You don't get that 60,000 foot view.
Yeah.
You know, you're
So we film a lot, but I don't get to have people that is helpful for them because they get to practice with coach all the time. So they're probably getting more realistic reps than what they would from, like, a lesser partner or something. But they're also beating up their coach. So now I got to take a day off, or, you know, guys, I just can't, like.
This is something that I struggle with a lot because I'm kind of on the opposite spectrum from you, where I used to have very few. I used to have like 5 people. And now, you know, if you come to my class, I have like 30 plus people, and I have, like, on this upcoming card, I think I'm scheduled to have 3 people fight on just this one card. We did a fight in Georgia where we had 8 people on one card. So it's hard for me because I don't really get a lot of one-on-one time. So there's a possibility where, you know, maybe 2-3 years ago, every person that was fighting, I was feeding mitts to. And now, like, the program's gotten so large for us that, I mean, it's unlikely that I'm going to be able to feed mitts to.
It's hard.
30 people in a week,
100%,
you know?
yeah.
So I see both sides of it.
And that's what I was saying. Like, I feel like you definitely want a head guy. You want someone who's, like, orchestrating everything, putting the right pieces together, but you're not going to really get him alone. So it's good to have, like, other people. And obviously, if you develop good enough students who can also coach and, you know, fill those teaching roles, look to have them involved. But if you're doing it all on your own, you're spread too thin.
There's also the difficulty of not only trying to build up athletes, but teaching them how to teach properly. Those are 2 very different skill sets.
Yeah. Yeah, in theory, you should be able to just regurgitate whatever coach said. But, like, it's not
Sometimes
that easy.
details are lost. And then also, people learn differently. So some students might respond better to certain analogies or metaphors than others.
Oh yeah, like that's what I'm always like. I take notes constantly. I always have. Like, I don't remember things. I'm not one of those like super sharp people who just like off the top of my head remember something. I need a reference of something. So I take notes all the time, and one of the things I'm always looking to take notes of since being a coach is analogies. Your first day in my class, oh, what sport did you play growing up? Oh, you didn't play a sport? Did you dance? Did you do this? Like, what movies do you like? Like, do you play video games? Anything I can pull an analogy for to make something more simple for you. But that's a lot to ask for, like, your regular students who may be helping a new guy or something. Like, oh, go teach them our basic 4-punch combination. And they only know one way of explaining something, and the other guy needs a baseball reference, but he doesn't know baseball. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I guess that comes with, like, because I cornered, like, a few people for PKB. Each person was individually, like, I spoke to them differently, right? So I would talk to them, like, in a different analogy. Some people who were, like, newer to our group, unfortunately, they only got the 2-5 rear round, right? Only numbers. But then some people I would tell, like, I would tell them, like, oh, check his timing, come off to the outside. And it was easy for me to, like, come up with, a vernacular, right? They were so used to it. And then when I'm teaching, like you said, like, the analogies, but I'm pulling analogies from, like, everywhere because there's 30 people in this room, So it's like, does anyone know how to drive? Does anyone know? Okay, Sammy, you know how to drive?
No, sorry.
Guys, you're doing the steering wheel.
Yeah.
It's, gas pedal. When you guys stomp into this knee, gas pedal against the floor, get tall.
Yeah, there's nothing more depressing as a coach when I'm like, especially like a big class, like, do you guys get it? Or what about this analogy? Do you guys get it? And I'll go like down the whole Rolodex of analogies and no one understands it. And I just go,
what's a Rolodex?
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Yeah, right. I'm just like, if you guys don't get it by now, I failed you as a coach. I didn't
because
do
back then you were able to say phone booth fighting and people got it. Now people that are coming up, what's a phone booth?
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, I've trained with so many different coaches over the years, and a lot of times there'll be a concept that's introduced to me, and then it'll be another 3-4 years before someone else introduces the exact same concept, but just presents it in a different manner, and it finally clicks in my head.
That's interesting too, because like this is something that I actually want to do an episode on in the future. So if you guys are listening and you're interested in this, I debate this a lot. Like, what is the X factor? Like, why is it one person can kick, you show them a kick and they do it 30 times and then they have the general consensus of what it should look like, versus you have some guy that comes in and maybe kicks 300 times and you're like, no, turn your hip over, do this, do that. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's that I'm not doing a good job of relating to them, or if they, they're just not like technically that fluid, or they lack the athleticism and it needs time for that to develop. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's a combination of multiple things. Some people just are natural, and it might not be like natural athletes. I've known plenty of people in their older life who've never thrown a punch or a kick before.
It just makes more sense.
And and they just got it down. Oh, you've never done this? No, never done it. I'm like, are you lying?
It's interesting you say that, because I always say that most people think that they're great at the 2Fs fighting and this other thing, and most people are generally suck at both, and they just don't want to accept that.
They can do them.
They get They've been trying. A couple of drinks in, anybody can fight. Also, I think too, with striking is that it's not a naturalistic style of combat. Like, if you watch two small children, they're not going to drop like round kicks on each other. They're going to try to out wrestle each other. Or animals, like if you look at primates, like they don't throw like jabs.
Yeah.
If they do, it's the grab. It's something that you truly have to train.
I get this all the time with MMA guys, and it blows my mind, because it's like, you're such a student of jiu-jitsu, but you look at striking as like this, afterthought, I'll just do some bag work, and that's my workout for striking. And it's like, there's a reason why boxing is called the sweet science. Do you not think it's even more complicated when you add knees, kicks, and elbows?
I think that the problem is that They recently identified over 1,000 possible techniques in jiu-jitsu. And like the thing about jiu-jitsu, I say this often. If you were a blue belt and you were frozen like Austin Powers style in like 1995 and you came out today, so like you haven't, or not even a blue belt, let's say a black belt. Let's say you're a black belt in 1995 and they froze you and they de-thawed you, like they thawed you out, whatever, however you say that word.
You got it right.
I can't read. If they were to thaw you today and you walked into a gym, you're not a black belt anymore. Like if you time traveled to the future, you're no longer a black belt because the sport has evolved. Mm-hmm. Jiu-jitsu's evolved so much in 20 years, right? But initially with Muay Thai, there's less than 100 tools, like 100 techniques, right? Where 1,000, there's like 1,000, over 1,000 techniques in jiu-jitsu. There's like 100 techniques in Muay Thai, right? You have like 8 punches and like 6 or 7 elbows and like maybe 5 styles of kicks, you know, like you can put them on different places, but it's a round kick, you know? So on its surface, striking is very simple. You know, like you don't have that many techniques. Like you could probably see, I always say this, if you've been training for 6 months at a good Muay Thai school, you've probably seen every technique. Like we're not hiding things from you. Like, oh, you don't get to see that until year 3.
Right.
But there's levels to the game, you know, because understanding timing, understanding setups, fakes, feints, all of these things.
People mistake the tools for the game itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is one thing that recent years I try to say more is like I try to stop calling myself a striking coach because striking's just a part of it. I call it like I'm a stand-up coach. You're on your feet.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, like you're on your feet, you're fighting, but you suck at punching. I wouldn't call yourself a striker. You just have to stand up. Now, if you're a grappler, grapple the guy. Maybe you have to throw a couple punches to get there, and we're going to clean that up, and we're going to make it look as realistic as possible, but you have pillow hands. So I wouldn't call yourself a striker, buddy. You're going to get that takedown using striking, but you're starting standing up. So I'm a stand-up coach.
That's
how I put it.
You know, because I always describe myself as a striker.
Yeah,
so,
for over a decade.
Like
that's
I'm a striker. Yeah. I'm a striking coach. I don't even like saying that I'm a Muay Thai coach because I had this conversation with my guys the other day. Like, if you want to get into the intricacies of authentic Muay Thai, like, oh, this guy's, this guy's an elbow specialist or whatever. Like, these aren't really things that I don't talk a lot about Lumpini Stadium, you know, like, and I think that when it comes to the art and culture of Muay Thai, although I appreciate it and I love it, we've talked about this before. I'm not like, I'm not really like, I'm not trying to learn more Thai words, you know what I mean? And I hate to say that because I think that maybe I'm not trying to be offensive. But
no, I'm the same way. Like, I wish I cared more about that. I do, because
I just really wish I cared more about you right now.
No, it's like,
I just
you know, I feel messed up like when people are like, oh, you teach Muay Thai. I even have a Mickey Mouse Muay Thai tattoo that I got drunk ironically. But, you know, whatever. So
if you guys are interested, we'll take a photo of that and put it on our social media.
But I do love Thai culture. I love I love watching YouTube Thai fights. They got the music playing and the crowd's betting. Oh, it's so great. Yeah. But I'm never going to do that with my guys. I've never been to Thailand. I don't, like, when I go to Thai restaurants, I go by the number. I'll have the number 32.
I'll have the pad Thai.
Yeah. Like, I'm not going to butcher your culture with my stupid, like, Southern, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, none of my guys are going to wear the Mekong and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if you as the athlete want to do that, you have to learn that. You be respectful, because I'm not the guy to teach you.
This goes back to a previous episode where we were talking about cultural appropriation in martial arts. And a lot of people who feel they lack a sense of identity in their personal life get into martial arts because it's such an immersive environment to be in. They get really into LARPing, being part of a culture they've never really experienced.
I like this. God, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. Like, you can love jiu-jitsu and not love Acai. If you're listening at home, I don't even know, dude. I don't even know. I'm telling you right now.
Great example, though.
You can love jiu-jitsu and not love Acai. Like, you don't have to like, and I'm not knocking Acai and I'm not knocking jiu-jitsu. What I'm saying is that I find it really frustrating when people get involved, and I alluded to this in a previous episode, where people get really involved in something and then they it's like they start talking in a fake accent, and you're just like, yo, dude, like, you can be like, it's okay to be you and also love this martial art, or it's okay to be you and have other hobbies. Like, you don't have to just like, you know, Krav Maga is my only thing, and I love Krav Maga, and, you know, like, next year I'm going to travel to where they founded Krav Maga, and I only wear shirts that say Krav Maga. Like, you don't have to do that. You know what I mean? Like, you can train and be you. You can love like salsa music, and, you know, like, I don't need to play, you know, God, I don't need to play European like synth punk when I do European style sword fighting.
Right. I mean, I personally have to.
You need
play
to.
The
I know that
Eurobeat.
you have to. I know that you have to.
Phil Collins and Eurobeat is my workout playlist.
Sammy, if we wanted to download your workout playlist, is it on Spotify?
I can set that up.
Could you set that up on Spotify?
I can absolutely set that up at Sammy Ryan everywhere.
By the way, guys, if you're listening on Spotify, or if you're listening on like Apple Music or wherever podcasts are found, really, we also have this with video on YouTube. Likewise, if you're watching on YouTube and you want to perhaps watch or listen when you're commuting or something you don't want to watch, please don't watch TV and drive like I do. You know, it is available on anywhere, pretty much anywhere, you know, just audio only podcasts are found. Hopefully. We'll find out, because sometimes I forget to hit record, and sometimes I do other weird things. The nature of the show. So, Rich, to get back onto the subject matter, which is you. You started off, you were competing, you got into coaching because it was obviously a natural progression for you. You went out to Las Vegas, you coached the syndicate. What brought you back to Orlando?
There's a few things, you know, personal life stuff.
Say a girl.
Actually, my girlfriend is from Vegas. She moved here
with you,
with me.
Oh, that's love, guys.
Yeah, it's
if your
legit.
girl moves with you, marry that woman.
Yeah, no, she's great. So I had like you know, my mom got sick, and I was sick of the business in Vegas. You know, we could talk about that, but no hard feelings. You know, it's business, whatever. I just was getting sick of it. You know, I hate getting taken advantage of.
Sure.
And I often put myself in positions to get taken advantage of, so it's on me sometimes too. But it was just too much, and it wasn't worth it. And then I wanted to be back by family. Again, the climate in Vegas, great for arthritis because it's so dry. But, like, I don't see green, and I grew up in Florida. I'm a Florida boy. Like, that's where I feel more lively, is around, like, plants and animals and all that stuff. So,
you know, it's interesting you say that, too, because I think that people confuse that. I love martial arts. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm involved in the business of martial arts, but those are two very, very separate things.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I struggle with, because, like, I can have a guy come to the gym, and I see that for whatever reason, he's training with us. It's really having a positive effect on his life.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe something happens and he can't afford to train anymore. It pains me to be like, yo, dude, sorry. Even though I see that, you know, I have a guy that he started training with me. He was drinking too much, and now I think he's been sober for like 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't want to make him feel like, hey, I see the positive effect that, you know, that training is having on you, and hey, you're having financial problems, so like F you, you should never come back to the gym. The other side of it, though, is that obviously, like, I have to pay my bills. Like, it costs a lot of money to run a business.
Yeah.
So I get you on that, because I hate the business of martial arts.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
You know?
Yeah, I when I started in Brevard, like I talked about, I had that coach Phil Collins, the ninja.
In the air tonight.
Yeah, he's great. When this comes out, I'll tag him on the Facebook, because he doesn't do Instagram.
Could you tag the real Phil Collins as well?
Yeah, I'll put for reference. I'll have both Phil Collins.
Nice.
Liquid and solid.
Imagine that rock and roll star Phil Collins has partied so much that he hears this podcast and he's like, I didn't even know that I was teaching martial arts.
But he would let me in the gym. I couldn't afford membership. I was a teenager, you know, like I was working, but couldn't afford extra stuff. Plus, not financially responsible. So he would let me in the gym like 5 minutes after class would start through the back door. So my development early on was like, hey, martial arts transcends finances. Like, you're a valuable member of class. Come and train. So that's always stuck with me. Like, the same thing. Like, if I got a guy who clearly this is helping him, but life has got him down and he can't pay the 100+, then it's like, all right, man, well, on Saturdays, there's not a lot of people around, so maybe you can come into this private session that we do. Like, you find a way to keep people involved, but it is tough, especially as a coach, and you've done it for so long, and you see the benefits. Telling guys no is, like, the worst
especially
thing.
When, like, there's such a big part of the culture, too, and it's like, after 3 years, this person's not your weekend warrior. He is there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he brings everyone up. He brings the energy. He's great. Now he's got to go.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, what are we losing? Are we losing a student? Or are we losing a big chunk of who we are?
Right. Yeah. Like you said, the culture. Yeah. People become part of the culture. Yeah. No. And my experience, as a coach with, small members in the team to massive members of the team, like I've had programs where I've had over 100 students to like now I'm down to 2.
Yeah.
No matter what, when you leave a student, when you leave a gym, like, it is so heartbreaking as a coach. As a student who's left gyms, oh, this sucks. Like, oh, yeah, I feel like I'm betraying my old team. As a coach doing that, it's way worse. It's a horrible, horrible feeling.
Leaving a gym is worse than going through a rough breakup.
You say that every time. You say that every time.
But it's very true. I
It is
remember
tough.
last time I left a gym, calling my head coach, like sobbing, telling him that I was not going to be coming back. It was awful. It was a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
This actually, if you don't know, Sammy trains at my gym now, and every time she tells this story, I feel like I'm the new like boyfriend, and I feel like why were you sad? Like, I don't want to hear that you were sad that you and your boyfriend broke up. You're with me now. But I get you, Sammy. I understand. He was better than I was. Fine. Great. Wow.
Now you're next.
Yeah, whatever. I look forward to you calling me crying. So you came back to Orlando.
Yeah, so going back to that, so I was fed up with it. I just wanted to get back to Florida, basically. Our buddy John had already opened Glory. They had been open for a while, and he was like, I'm at the point now where I could use another coach. Would you want to come? I was like, yeah, I would like to. That would sound like I got a job right away. Cool. And about 6 months after I came back, COVID hit. That was 2 months after my girlfriend moved to Florida. So her experience in Florida is much different than many of ours.
She's like, this place sucks.
Yeah, no, it was really rough. She's shout out Keena Smith. She's great.
Hey, Keena.
So
probably the only person that's going to watch the show.
Yeah. She won't watch the whole thing. I'll be like, I mentioned you halfway through. She'll be like, okay.
I mentioned you at the 54-minute mark, roughly.
She hears me talk about martial arts all the time. She doesn't
She's
need any more.
She's
Yeah.
over it.
Yeah.
I say this often. I don't ever date anyone that does what we do, because I feel like it's just too much. Like, I can't. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah. No, it's not a good idea. I feel like in any endeavor, like when you hear like 2 lawyers are together, or like 2 doctors are together, I'm like, do you really want to do that?
Yeah,
like, that's a little rough.
I have to, when I'm in a relationship, I have to remember that they don't. I say this often, guys. Side note, relationship advice: your spouse, your significant other, does not have to love all the things that you love. You guys can have your own.
Yeah, you don't want them to.
You have your own identity. You can have your own things that you're into. They need to. They need to have their own things that they're into. So we can go kind of 2 interesting places. You now you judge fights in addition to coaching. I've seen that you do commentary, and you also now have your own. You're doing promotions now. Mm-hmm. Which one of those would you like to talk about? I'll give you the dealer's choice.
Okay, let's go with judging.
Judging, okay, cool.
Because I feel that it doesn't get talked enough about.
We could do I want to do, actually, if you guys are interested, I want to do a future episode where we get like a bunch of people that have judged fights, and we just literally talk about like the things that we've seen or the advice that we would give or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Because
it would be interesting if you got like 4 or 5 different judges to talk about.
I mean, this is the thing too, because you judge amateur fighting. Have you ever judged pro fighting?
No, you got to get licensed by the Athletic Commission, and I'm not over 80, so they don't take those applications.
If you're the Florida Athletic Commission, I am sorry. I just want to apologize in advance. When I turn 80, I would also like to judge for you. What? So this is interesting because, to be honest with you, you're the first person I ever talked to, like had a personal conversation with, that was a judge. And, I know this is going to sound crazy, but in that conversation, some of the stuff that we talked about, like fundamentally changed the way I teach.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I never really thought about it that way from a judging perspective. Now, since then, I've had the privilege of judging through your organization, which is super cool. But yeah, dude, like judging's not talked about. Like, we don't talk about how judges perceive fights, which I think is really cool. There's something that you had said to me, which I think I took really to heart, was that if you're not causing breaks, or if there's not breaks happening in your fights, it's very hard for judges to kind of score that. So if you have this 30, 45 second kind of interlocked exchange where even if it's super exciting and people are like hitting each other, a judge is kind of waiting for a pause in the action to score that. And sometimes they might only be scoring that last 2-second exchange out of 45 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate because there is like a scoring criteria, right? Effective strike. If let's say we're talking about MMA, because I always, when it comes to judging, then you get the like pure Muay Thai, he caught a roundhouse and did this sweep. That should, okay. But we're not in Thailand and there's not money on the line like you want. So let's talk about MMA. So like there is a scoring criteria, effective striking and grappling. Damage is number 1. So if I got a guy with a busted eye, he's limping and stuff, he's probably losing. Like, doesn't matter what the strike count is. He's hurt. He's probably not going to walk tomorrow.
If the guy's bleeding. If I cut the guy's face and he's bleeding, I won the round.
So damage is supposed to be a big one.
Sure.
If the guy's getting legitimately rocked, head pop back, that's not rocked. But like if he's stumbles, woozy, kind of like shakes his head, one of those things, okay, he's being affected, brain cells are being lost, that's damage. So that should be simple, right? But again, it's not that simple. Guys are constantly exchanging, they're tough, they don't get damaged, especially in amateur fights, short rounds, so it's not a lot of time to do long-term damage. So then you have to go into the more like lesser tiers, strike counts and ring control, aggressiveness, right? So, okay, the more you sit there and exchange, right, you're just evening the playing field with your opponent. So if I'm fighting Robert and we go through, like you said, like a 30-second exchange, and as a judge, I'm supposed to sit there and be like, oh, he landed a left knee. Oh, wait, no, and then, oh. That's
one here, one there, one here, one there.
It's a lot to calculate. And then the round's over, and I got a minute to put 10 or 9 down. So then, a lot of times these judges will go by what they saw last, or, oh, he popped his head back, so therefore, like, that was the biggest strike. May not have been the case, right? So what I try to, with my guys, and I learned this too through judging, dominate the fight, show that you're winning. There should be no argument.
I find that kind of, again, one of the things that, seems to win the most decisions at the amateur level is just the guy that's coming forward. Even if the other guy's coming backwards and he's scoring, he's counter-striking and he's getting maybe cleaner lines, but because he's just walking backwards and the other guy's eating stuff while walking forward, sometimes judges see that and they're just like, oh, this other guy's he's more aggressive. He's coming forward.
It's 100% true. And I've talked to other judges and, again, like, especially on the amateur level, like, this is so funny. Like, when I've asked, I run the PKB and we'll talk about that. But, like, hey, do you want to judge for my show? Like, you fought a couple times. Like, oh, no, I don't have the criteria to judge. I'm like, hey, buddy, you don't know who judges your fights. You don't know these guys. You don't know what they're looking for. You don't know their background. Like, you'd be surprised how little they know, and your record is on the line based on their opinions. And it's like, you're good to judge some point kickboxing. Like, you'll get it.
He'll be all right, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, dude, that's so wild. What do you think? What do you wish that all fighters knew before they, or what? Like, how would I phrase that? Is there something that you think that most amateur debut fighters or amateur fighters just need to know that they don't? I'm putting you on the line there really hard.
No, you're fine. I actually,
Did
took
you take
some
notes on this?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So,
But I don't think we've gone an episode where I didn't ask if they had an outline or if we took notes.
So, a lot. There's a lot that goes into fighting. I'm very like analytical. I'm very like, I will do 2-hour session. You're gonna pay me for an hour, but we're gonna do a 2-hour session because your footwork is trash and you need to spend a whole hour stepping, like basics. So whenever I do privates with guys, I let them know like right away. If you're okay with doing like at least 30 minutes of footwork, then we'll be okay. But if you're gonna be annoyed by that, then I'm not the guy for you because I'm gonna be annoyed that you're annoyed. That's just like me personally.
I don't think that fighters understand, or maybe not fighters. I don't think that like the layman or the person that getting into this understand that the difference in winning and losing is millimeters and milliseconds.
It's such a narrow margin.
If it took you 2 steps to get there, or it took you 1 step to get there, or it took you no steps to get there, those are fundamentally those are huge problems.
Mm-hmm.
If every time you need to throw a kick, you have to step twice to throw that kick, it's not going to land, dude. Or if it does land, maybe it's going to land on the guy that's younger, less experienced. But once the guy gets a little bit more experience, he sees your 2 steps to his 1 step and he wins.
Yeah. So you asked for amateurs getting into fights. I'll give you like maybe my top 3.
Okay, go ahead. Top 3.
Top 3. So first and foremost,
into the mic. Top 3.
Yeah, into the mic. Focus on defense.
Okay.
Focus on defense. Again, it goes into that point of like knowing when to break or stop an exchange. I say this all the time to guys, especially like new people. When you came into the gym, you told me you wanted to, 90% of people say this, I wanted to do something different, meaning you didn't want to run on a treadmill or lift weights. I want to do something different, and I want to learn self-defense. And for whatever reason, everyone's mindset is, that means I'm going to learn how to knock people out. And that is not self-defense. Self-defense is being calm in a crazy situation and being able to protect yourself. Knocking someone out is a goal in combat sports. But if I was to defend myself on the street, if I can run away, if I can block and trip the guy and get out of there, I won that fight in a self-defense situation.
I think Sammy said this the other day, and it's true. Everyone envisions fighting as you hitting someone else.
Mm-hmm.
No one ever envisions fighting as some dude hitting you.
1,000%.
I mean, the first thing people want to learn when they get started in fighting is they want to do a spinning wheel kick to someone's head. They love head kicks.
Yeah.
They love
too.
very flashy knockout moves like they see in martial arts movies. Like, as someone who has had like real life self-defense experience, it's always like hip, escape, run.
Yeah.
Get out of there.
I teach pushing. I tell guys all the time, like when they're like, I feel like when I'm in the bar, someone's going to like, and I don't know how to defend myself. I'm like, I'm going to teach you how to shove. And they're like, and I'm like, it's really effective. You'd be really surprised.
You'd be amazed how good this is.
Yeah. Like guys will get shoved in public and then literally like puss out.
Yeah,
because
like,
I'm done.
You mentally broke them.
Yeah.
You won the mental exchange.
And you just knocked them back 10 feet, and they're like, wow, this guy's crazy strong.
Got a lot of strength.
Oh, boy.
This guy don't. Oh,
Or they
I almost said something way off.
Oh
yeah,
my
sorry.
God!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I in the few times that I've had to be involved in kind of like self-defense or kind of work-related violence, it's always been like I kick out the guy's leg, like I do like an inside sweep.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even fall, and then he's like, "Oh no, I don't want any of that. That's not a good idea." Or I just push him harder than he imagined, and he's like, "Oh, this isn't what it was going to happen."
Yeah, like this isn't like 1-for-1. Like we don't go turns. Like
this went better in my head.
So
Yeah.
so number one,
learn defense.
Learn defense.
Focus a lot of time on defense if you want to compete. If you're a guy in the class and you maybe want to spar here and there, okay, yeah, like attacking, cool, but attacking is the riskiest thing you can do in a fight.
sure.
Right? Like if I go to throw a punch at Robert, he can also punch me, or he could
Right.
step in and elbow me. But if I stay out here, he's got to do all that work to get in.
Yeah.
Right.
So focus on defense. That means like stay away, learn how to circle, block, check, slip and roll, parry, all those great movements that guys want to do like occasionally. Do that a lot.
By the way, guys, this is my biggest pet peeve. Defense is not walking backwards. Defense is learning how to defend yourself and not have to, I see guys at the gym that like whenever they defend anything, they have to step like take 8 steps backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that because initially, like just as a human being, like the most clear way to self-preserve like is to get out of the way. Like, oh, this car's coming. Let me move.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight. But at the end of the day, if you want to be a fighter, you're going to be fighting in a ring or a cage, so you have a limited amount of space. Focus on a technique that is defensive, that's not you jumping backwards every time, because it's just you're going to run out.
Yeah, 100%.
What's number 2, Rich?
Number 2, let's see what I wrote and see if I agree with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
How tired were you when you wrote number 2?
I've had some stressful days. So.
I hear you.
All right. So rest is just as important as training.
Sure.
And I always say to my guys, and even my high level guys that I've worked with, you have to constantly remind them, you cannot win the fight if you do not make it to the fight.
Yeah.
If you're so busted and bruised and broken 3 weeks before the fight, well, buddy, like, this isn't going to be good 3 weeks for you.
This is something I say a lot, is that every competitive fight actually has 3 fights. The first fight is making it to the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Can you survive your camp, and can you make weight? The fight itself is the second fight, and the third fight is the mental aspect afterwards. Did you win and now everyone loves you and you become uncoachable, or did you lose and you can't get over it? You can't get back in and keep pushing forward. Like, it breaks you.
Yeah. No, actually, that's a really good point. A lot of people don't talk about after the fight because you only see the hand raised, you see, or doesn't get raised, or you're out on a stretcher.
Rich's guys only raise hands, is what he's saying. He only raise.
I try, man. It's hard. But yeah, like rest, recovery. There's so many options now. Like, there's so much education. When I started, it was stretch. That was it.
Yeah.
Like,
and guys, make sure you're stretching, drinking water.
Yeah, and then no one taught me how to stretch. And if they did teach me how to stretch, I'm doing the stretches like, this seems like bullshit. Like, I'm not. This hurts my back. This isn't helping my back.
This is not helping me right now.
The stretch is messing me up more than the training.
All the time, people come to me like, "Hey, coach, can you show me?" No, I'm not your yoga instructor. I have no I know you've studied. So you're someone to go to.
Occasionally.
But I'm not gonna be the guy to be like, hey, you need to do this, this, and that. I'm like, there's a lot of information out there.
I mean,
go look it up.
Yeah.
You know what? That's funny too, because you say that, but so I'm a exercise physiologist. I went to college for exercise science. I don't really do a lot of strength and conditioning. Like, I have another guy that he also went to college for exercise science, because it's hard for me to do both. It's hard for me to be like teaching you martial arts and also like, hey man, let's go bench press. Like, I like that I have another guy that can help me with that, because I can't wear all the hats all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So number 1, work on your defense. Number 2, rest.
Yeah.
What's number 3, Rich?
I'll combine 2 of these together.
Okay.
So
this is 3.5.
3.5.
All right.
Do private lessons.
Interesting.
Do private lessons.
Cash grab, guys. No.
This is not a marketing scheme. I'm not trying to tell you.
Fridge is available for private lessons.
$100 an hour.
I will post my schedule when this comes out. No, honestly, do private lessons. People neglect it for so long. Oh, I'll just keep going to class. I'll learn, and then eventually I do private lessons. We talk about, like, the startup of martial arts, if you join a gym, is expensive. You getting your ass kicked all the time is also expensive in a different way.
Yeah.
If you want to, like, succeed in this and not feel like I'm wasting my time, I'm getting hurt too much, they're not showing me all the right moves, well, you're just not taking the extra time. So doing private lessons will save you so much. You won't even know if you do it. It will save you so much time in the gym of getting your ass kicked if you do some private lessons. And then on that same page, take notes. Whether you're doing private lessons or not, go home, type something out, write it down. You learn so many things every day, and then the next day happens, you're like, oh, what do we do?
Literally, go to tutoring.
Yeah.
Hire a tutor, go to tutoring, take your notes.
It's the same. I did horrible in high school, and I I did not do any of those things. I didn't get private lessons. I didn't take notes. I was just like, what did we do yesterday? Like, but when it came to something I enjoy, like rugby or martial arts, I took a lot of notes, and lo and behold, I do really well at those things.
This is interesting because the first gym that I trained at as an adult, they had a culture of like training journal. Where you would have everyone would bring like a little like notepad or something that they would just fill up. And I actually have I should figure out, we'll find one and post a photo, but I actually have one of those where like one of my first fight journals where I would literally write like today in class, this day we worked on this technique, whatever. And you know, like sometimes I didn't know the name and I'd just be like, oh, we did kind of like, and I'd describe like, oh, we did this, you know. And when I started my own program, I tried to create that culture of like, hey, you need to have a journal. And initially it was so poorly received that I gave up on it. I was like, oh, I'm not going to force these guys to do this anymore, you know? And I like kind of not on the private lesson thing, but I encourage my guys to go to a lot of like workshops and seminars. Like, hey, if you know, I have like Asa Tenpao come up every year, and you know he's an amazing martial artist and a competitor, and you know he'll show like 3 hours worth of materials. Sometimes, Asa, if you're listening, I love you. Sometimes you show like too much, and I hate to say that because I don't want you to stop showing so much stuff.
I love it,
but sometimes he'll show so much stuff that I'm like, yo, you guys, make sure you're writing everything down because like there's so much. He's getting so much gold right now that you need to save all this stuff.
I will say, thankfully, he does like, hey, there's a syllabus. Yeah.
Listen, I'm that way. I teach like a professor. You know, I teach, hey guys, we have a syllabus. Hey, this is an outline. Hey, this is where we're going to be. And you know, it's funny because I think sometimes people don't respond to that because they just want they just want to come in and bang. I just want to bang, bro, and they don't want to have to think a lot, you know, about it.
But also, a lot of people, as they're entering the world, they don't understand how to properly learn martial arts. They think it's just going to be, okay, jab, cross, kick, whatever, and they're going to repeat these movements. They don't understand that there is a greater game to it, and so if they don't understand the context, it can just be information overload all at once.
And the cool thing about that is, like, again, the demographic that you get in each workshop or seminar that you go to is that there are other people who are enthusiastic about what you're doing. You know, like when we went to Vegas, it was just kind of refreshing. Like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like this guy is just as nerdy about it as I am too.
For sure.
You know, so it was really cool, and you got to learn a lot about their perspectives. They probably not. They probably didn't learn anything from me, but like, yeah, they learned nothing from me.
That bald guy's weird.
The bald guy,
Spazzy AF.
Dude, I gotta shake that name.
You're never getting rid of Spazzy, bro.
Oh God.
So,
can I actually add one more?
Dude, it's
this
is
from a judge's perspective.
This is the Rich Grindle, Coach Rich Grindle experience. Yeah.
Sure. I hate that. But anyways, as a judge, this is one thing, especially with like amateurs. I've seen this too many times lately, and I'm sick of it. I want to put it out there. Stop pointing at the floor in a close fight and like enticing a brawl. If you're trying to win the fight, you're making it much harder for yourself. You point at the floor, you start swinging. It goes back to not going, you know, in and out, circling left and right, protect your points. No, now you made it an even match. Oh, it's a draw? You don't like a draw? You shouldn't have pointed at the floor. You shouldn't have, earlier you brought up fight of the night. Right. I teach my guys, avoid fight of the night. Avoid it like the play. Get performance of the night. That's what you want.
You know what? That was the better word for it. Yes.
I'm friends with Helen Peralta, who's going to be on this season of The Ultimate Fighter coming up. And I remember we were hanging out one day, and she's like, "Bro, I don't want fight of the night. That means we were in a brawl. That means we got beat up. Like if you're fight of the night, that's two people that got beat up." She's like, "I don't want to win fight of the night, dude. I want to win the fight, but like you can keep your fight of the night. I'm not taking any damage. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna demolish this girl. You know."
That's how you should look at it.
Performance of the night was probably like I want to win by like a landslide.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I will say this: if you walk out and you like starch somebody in the first like 3, 5, 6 seconds, that actually feels like kind of disappointing. Sometimes you're just like, oh, that's it, it's over. Oh wow, dude, I didn't even want the first punch. Like, it feels super cool, but it also feels like, oh, I did all this training for 8 seconds, man. Like, what was the point of that?
Even as the coach, I'm over there like, man, I didn't have to work as hard as I did. I
wish we would have. I wish we would have done a little more work. Like, let him. That that's
Paul's already scheduling the next fight. He's like,
well,
nope.
That's the funny thing about. I was talking to a bunch of Muay Thai coaches.
Yeah.
When we were in Vegas, and one of the things they were saying was that they hate that these were authentic Muay Thai coaches from Thailand. If you watch traditional Muay Thai, a lot of times it's 4 or 5 rounds. And because the betting hasn't yet started, the first round, neither fighter's really trying to push each other. Mm-hmm. So, like, they don't want they don't want like a decisive first round, So they get into the second, third round before it really starts to get hot because they need to build the betting up.
Right.
But yeah, dude, like, sometimes I'm like, I always teach my guys to come out really calm and cool and collective and like let a little bit of time. Now, we're not betting, so I'm not like sitting there going like, oh, make sure you get enough money first.
Right.
But to me, it's like, I see, this is something that if I was to give advice to like amateur fighters, I have seen so many fights now over the years, amateur fighters, where one guy comes out and he's so hot that he throws everything he's got. And 45 seconds in, the other guy just starts to, like clean him up because he's got nothing left because he just blew out his entire tank, and now he's exhausted.
Like he blew out his entire tank, and I know your hand.
Yeah, like I've seen everything that you can do now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the glory of a quick victory is far more appealing to fans than it is to the people who are
like
actually
the fighters,
fighting.
the athletes, yeah. That's. I mean, don't get me wrong. I hate when my fighters take damage. Like, I don't like. I hate when they, like they won the fight, but like the next day they can't walk or something.
But the loss feels worse than the win feels good.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's saying I have to hate winning more than I love. I have to hate losing more than I love winning.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Like I said before, I won my first fight. That was cool, and then I lost a few, and those were devastating. Like, just losing fights, like. It's such a horrible feeling, and then you got to go back to the gym, and you got to go to work, and how'd your fight go, blah, blah, blah. And then you win, and then they're like, oh, how'd it go? It's like, oh, I choked him out in the 3rd round. Like,
That's fun.
Moving on.
Hey, yeah.
Like, can I explain the choke to you? They don't
want
care.
to see it?
Like,
I have it on video.
Yeah, like, they don't care. It's like you said, like, winning feels good, but then everyone's like, well, when's your next one? And it's like,
I think that, like, when you win, it feels good for about 24 hours.
Yeah.
I've known, people that lost a year ago, and they're still telling you about why they lost. You're like, dude, you got to stop talking about this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry that you lost, but like, we can't have this like conversation. I can't hear every day how you lost. You know what I mean? I get that. We know how you lost. We got to keep moving forward.
Just do the next fight. Sign up next month. Okay,
so, Rich, kind of the last thing that I want to talk about today, because I've kept you way too long.
Oh, you're fine.
Is now you're promoting.
Yeah.
Could you talk to me a bit about that? How you got involved in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my time in Vegas was very valuable. I learned a lot. One thing that I got to do while I was there was on top of being in charge of the amateur MMA guys, I was co-coach to the Muay Thai thing. My buddy Walker, who's from South Carolina, he was the other Muay Thai coach. So he knew about this thing called Point Muay Thai, and he knew that because Johnny Davis, the guy who runs it, is from South Carolina. So
Very cool.
Where he's from, he's aware of point kickboxing, point Muay Thai. There's guys in California, this guy Ryan Hodges and his brother, they run California's IKF point Muay Thai.
Okay.
So Vegas is a horrible place to develop a fighter because they have almost no promotions, no striking promotions, essentially, unless pro. And their MMA is 2-minute rounds. So horrible place to develop a fighter. Great place to train. You have to go to California. You have to go to Colorado, Utah, those places. So we would go to California, and we would take our Muay Thai team to these point Muay Thai events because they ran them very frequently.
For those that are listening at home, could you kind of explain what that, like, what is point Muay Thai? What does that mean?
So we all are aware of what full contact fights are. Even if you're not sure, if you watch amateur or professional fights, generally that's going to be a full contact fight.
Okay.
If it's in a ring or if it's in a cage, it's a full contact fight.
So if I'm watching ESPN 8, the Ocho, and I see a kickboxing fight, that would be I'm most likely watching a full contact kickboxing fight.
If people are getting TKO'd or knocked out, it's full contact.
Okay.
Cool. So point kickboxing or point Muay Thai. So I want to say this too. Point Muay Thai is way more popular.
Okay.
I love point kickboxing. I love kickboxing. I teach all my guys who are, I want to be a Muay Thai fighter. Okay, cool. But also opportunities. If you want to do kickboxing, you have to understand the rule sets. So I do love point kickboxing. I do love kickboxing in general. But Muay Thai is far more popular. So point Muay Thai is basically hard sparring.
Okay.
A lot of guys look at it as competitive, technical sparring. It's everything you would do in a full contact fight.
Same rule set, essentially.
Minus the ability to knock the guy out or to get a finish. The only way you can win is, unfortunately, through disqualification or decision.
Okay.
And the idea is it's a development program for people who want to get into competition and they want to increase their skills without the risk of getting KO'd.
I think that what a lot of people at home are probably thinking about, and what I thought about first when I heard point Muay Thai, is like that old point style. I hit them and then they break. I hit them and then they break. This is continuous fighting, correct?
Correct, 100%.
All right.
Again, the way I tell people, because I had especially for the first event, I had to go to like gym by gym. So many gyms, like same thing, the karate thing, and I'm like, dear God, can we get rid of karate?
Karate people, please don't come after.
Yeah,
us.
stop watching Cobra Kai. Like it is not like that. It is continuous fighting. It is literally, we all know that you spar in the gym.
Sure.
Oh, we're gonna put a 2-minute round on, guys. After this round,
hopefully.
After this round, you'll get another partner, or maybe you're going with the same partner.
Somebody's at home goes, my gym doesn't spar.
Yeah.
Leave, go somewhere else. Wrong gym. Sorry guys. Sorry,
Come
my
join
bad.
us.
What is sparring?
What is this?
So it's I would say, hopefully, it's almost identical to that, except you're sparring in front of a crowd, which is probably not normal at your gym, and it's against a stranger, which is also not normal at your gym. Normally, you know the people you're sparring or know of them because you're on the same team.
Sure.
So it is to give you your feet wet in that competition setting with, again, the unlikely risk of getting KO'd or TKO'd.
Yeah.
You still will get hit. You still will get kicked. You might be limping the next day.
Yeah.
Hopefully not. Hopefully you got a good check game going. But it's a step in between sparring at your gym and competing as an amateur.
Sure.
It's that middle ground.
There's also a little bit less spectacle
Yeah.
compared to some more conventional amateur fighting. This kind of loops back to the conversation we're talking about developing fighters. So I recently did one of the PKB tournaments. And for me, I'm someone who's been training for a long time, and I understand the culture, I understand the tools. I've been sparring, but I want to fight. The question is, how do I kind of bridge that gap between just being part of the gym to being a competitor? And I think fear is the mind killer. And it's not that I'm afraid of getting knocked out, but it is the pressure of the crowd and the spectacle that kind of got in my head, on top of weight cuts and some other politics that go within the world of fighting. So kind of having this step between helped me kind of get over the fear of
That's interesting, because
competition.
With PKB, you don't do weight cutting, correct?
Yeah, we frown upon it. It's like a 10-pound gap.
Okay.
Right? Our weight classes are,
160 to 170.
Basically.
170 to 180.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. We want to match you up as fairly as possible, but there's so many dynamics.
Yeah,
to
it's a complicated process.
Yeah, but again, we don't want you to weight cut, because the thought process on weight cut is, I want to gain an advantage, which neither of you are gaining an advantage, but I want to gain an advantage so I have more power than him. Why do I want more power? Because I want to knock him out. Well, you can't knock out here, so don't cut weight.
Yeah.
And also, you for fighters listening, you want to get knocked out easily, cut a lot of weight.
Yeah, for sure.
Cut, a ridiculous amount of weight. You're going to be easily on the wrong end of a highlight reel. So don't cut a shit ton of weight. And we don't encourage that at all. Like,
This is same day weigh-ins.
Same day weigh-ins. We on registration on the website, you'll put what weight you're at and what you'll think you'll be at, but we're still gonna weigh you in.
Yeah,
because people are gonna be like, I'm gonna lose 20 pounds in the next 6 weeks. No, you're
I'm
not.
gonna be 75 pounds lighter in 3 months.
Yeah,
right.
So yeah, it's a 10-pound gap. We try to keep people within relative experience level, but it's not perfect. But again, there's not that risk of this guy's gonna try and kill me. No, the ref. That's the hardest part of the PKB. If you notice, the refs are far more involved than in a full contact fight.
Sure.
The full contact fight refs, they're there to make sure you don't die.
Pretty much.
That's what it is.
That's assuming if they're awake.
Right, yeah.
If they're paying attention.
Yeah. Fighter safety, okay, just don't die. That's our job.
Yeah.
Like, because sometimes they'll be watching the fight.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be like, oh, he's getting them.
Point.
This guy's really hitting hard right now. It's craziness.
Our point,
Sure, we should stop it.
Muay Thai judges, point kickboxing judges, or refs, they're there to stop any moment like that may get too heated. And again, it's a really tough job because you want the guys to fight. You don't want to get involved, but you got one guy slinging leather while the other guy's not knowing how to defend, and you got to get in there and be like, hey, you need to defend more. Like, you almost kind of play like a coach in a millisecond.
It is kind of weird, yeah.
Yeah, and it is difficult. I've stepped in to ref a few of the matches to make sure I understand it on all levels, and it's hard. It's I will say it's probably much tougher than a full contact reffing job.
I would say it's funny because, like, obviously when I'm cornering someone or when I'm like coaching someone, sometimes when we're sparring at the gym, I'll be standing right next to that person being like, hey man, you need to get your hands up, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, what are you doing? Like, you need to cover start checking that kick, dude. What are you doing? But then that's not a traditional referee in a full contact match isn't going to be like, yo, dude, stop getting punched in the head right now. Like, cover your head.
Yeah.
Wherein with PKB, referees will be, hey, you need to make sure that you're, not doing this because that's why you're getting hit.
Mm-hmm.
Or, hey, I saw at PKB a ref like kind of break the guys because they were hitting too hard, and they'd be like, hey guys, look, you need to make sure that you're, using, points. This is point fighting. This isn't power fighting.
Yeah.
And I think when you go to PKB tournament, at least Rich's PKB tournaments, you hear that phrase like points not power.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because then I started going to PKB, and now in sparring, when I'm running a sparring class, I keep telling people, hey guys, sparring's about scoring points, not power, not trying to knock the guy out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's again, just even as a full contact fighter, when we talk about don't sit there and exchange with the guy for the whole round. Like, score your points, now protect your points. This is like a common strategy in all sports.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I scored 3 touchdowns. I'm not going to now let you score 3 touchdowns. Yeah. No, I'm going to play good defense. I'm going to make sure we get possession of the ball, and I'm not going to let you score. But for some reason, that's kind of like lacking in a lot of systems and such. I recognize this doing a lot of the point Muay Thai in California with our guys. I'm like, I got these killers, but why are they like losing these amateur fights? Like, they should be killing these guys. Well, no, they're wasting energy in all these exchanges. They have literally like almost no defense. Like, we need to change this. And the point Muay Thai pointed that out. So when I got back to Orlando, I was like, why don't we have this? It makes no sense.
Yeah, I think that's me as a coach now. Like, I'm actively encouraging my people, like someone like Sammy, who has been training for like 7 years, or even 9 years. It's like, hey, Sammy, if you want to transition into fighting, there's kind of a middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
It's pre-amateur fighting.
Yeah,
right.
That's how I look at it as well.
And also, I think the culture of smokers has kind of
it's gone now.
The smoke is out. Like, it's over. It's hard to get smokers. You don't really see them anymore. When I was coming up, I had a lot of smoker fights, which, trust me, those were fights, man. Same amount of brain damage.
Or worse.
Like nobody. Like,
yeah, no one cares.
There's, you're going to fight that guy. All right,
on your
great.
own kid.
Yeah, you're going to love it.
Yeah, I again, dealing with that, promoting these events, that's another one. If they didn't say, oh, like karate fighting, they would say, oh, like a smoker. I'm like, oh my God, it's not a smoker. It's 100% not a smoker. Please don't tell people they're going to be fighting in a smoker. Yes, it's not in a ring. It's not in a cage.
Yeah.
But it's not, my gym versus their gym or like, I've done a ton of smokers. It's horrible. It's a bad culture thing. I'm glad they're gone because I've seen more people turned away from martial arts after doing smokers than anything else.
I think, to be honest with you, smokers are the reason that I never took fighting competitively to the next level as an athlete.
Yeah, I've seen it time and time again.
Such bad experiences every time I went to a smoker. And like I said, when I was coming up, you couldn't get a lot of amateur Muay Thai was hard to find. There'd be one like a yearly show here or there, but it wasn't like you could do an event every month or every 2 months or every 3 months or something. And I had such horrible experience at smokers that I was like, I don't want to keep doing this. This isn't going to work out for me.
I remember you asked my first fight. My first competition I did was a smoker. I was 16. I fought my buddy. We were training partners, and he beat my ass. He head kicked me within like 30 seconds. I was wearing the headgear with like the mask.
Yeah.
Because, that's
full
safe.
Face or whatever.
So after he head kicked me, it like made me like snot all over so I couldn't see for the next like round and a half, just getting battered over and over again. Well, he won, and good job. He killed me. Then they had him fight an adult. They're like, you did so good. We're going to have you fight this adult. And he did well until he didn't. He was winning probably, and then the adult was like, oh, I'm going to treat you like you are, which is a child, and I'm going to knee you to death.
He's not hitting like a kid now.
Yeah, and
that's not a man. That wasn't a man.
That's not a man.
Yeah, and I remember even at 16 going, that doesn't seem right. This doesn't seem like a good way to keep this student involved in the sport, which he did not. He did not stay in the sport, even though he won a fight
the
earlier.
Mind killer.
Yeah. Listen, man, I would say that more people leave martial arts because of bad coaching than anything else. Mm-hmm. Because we've said this before. You got a guy, his first week in the gym, he does not need to spar. He's all right. He'll be okay. Yes, I know he showed up to your sparring class. You're all right. I've had arguments with people before because people showed up for sparring. It was like their first day.
Yeah.
And they let them spar. And I'm like, yo, what are you doing, dude? Like, how is that helping anybody? Mm-hmm. But, man, Rich, I have a question for you, and maybe we'll go into your final thoughts on this, but, hopefully this could be an hour and a half conversation. For you, how do you determine if the place that you're training at is good versus bad? Is there one thing that you could kind of isolate where you're like, hey, when I see this thing in gyms, I typically know that it's a pretty good school? Or if I see this in gyms, that's usually a red flag to me that this is not the right place for me to be at?
That's a great question. I wish you outlined that question. I could put a little more thought into it. But
we could circle back around if you'd like.
No, I think for me, right off the bat, are the people having a good time.
Okay.
If you're in class and you just see like a lot of long faces, a lot of like, are we doing this again type of thing, unless you're one of those people who are like, I love dull, unexciting, like then maybe that's not the right spot for you. I like to have fun. My fighters probably hear me say that and they're like, no, you don't. But if I'm teaching a class setting,
all the negative comments are just going to be your athletes going, he's not fun.
Yeah, he's an asshole, which is fine. I am. But, if I'm in class, let's talk about the 90% of people who come to gyms. They're not there to be the next world champion. If they're having fun, that's always a good sign, right? If students are consistent, right? They're not like turn and burn. We have a new group every 3 months. Like if you have consistency, you got members for years. Oh, I've been here for 6 years. I've been here for 5 years. That's a great sign.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this before, like having women in class, because when I came up in martial arts, there was like absolutely no women in classes. If a girl joined a gym, she was constantly hit on, like that was just what it was.
I've mentioned her twice now, but there's a girl on Instagram or TikTok named CalcuKate that's friends with Sammy. And by the way, CalcuKate is like the best screen name or whatever I've ever seen. I like the name more than anything. But she did a video. She's a martial artist. She did a video, like a short video on how to know if your program was good. And she said that women in the gym were literally the canary in the coal mine. If you walk in a gym and there's a lot of women and they're thriving, it's
high
probably a good
level
program.
women,
yeah,
specifically.
You know, I'm not talking about like there's just a ton of girls there. I'm talking about there's a ton of girls there that are training, that are progressing, that are striping up, that have belts, that are in the gym. That to me is a sign that this must be a good place to train.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, if you're a 120-pound girl or a 115-pound girl training, you know, you can't have dudes dropping bombs on you because you physically can't continue to take that damage.
Right.
So if you have a gym where, like, you know, you have a bunch of, you know, high-level girls that are training and they're not, you know, getting just bullied every day, I think that's a sign that there's a good culture at the gym, a culture of training over a culture of, like, violence.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I won't necessarily say, like, I think everyone that doesn't actually train for a considerable amount of time, they look at gyms that win a lot or compete a lot. Let's say that even. They go, oh, they must be good. They're competing. They're at every event. And it's like, not true. Maybe that's the case. I think that's a case for a lot of gyms that do compete a lot, but there's also gyms that compete a lot that are like, oh, they're unsafe. You should probably double check what other people think.
I don't know. Like, when I see gyms that they compete a lot, sometimes my question is, like, how are they getting people ready for that? Like, I cannot have fighters on, you know, now in Florida, there's probably like a card every month or a card there's 2 cards a month sometimes. Like in March, I know I can think of 2 different organizations in Orlando that are having amateur MMA competitions. 3. Rich is saying 3. I can't put someone on every card. Even though I have a lot of students, I don't have that many students that are prepared to fight on every single card. And I think that I think sometimes as a coach, you feel compelled to put people on cards because you're like, oh, I got to have somebody on, you know, I have to have an appearance. I have to have a presence. And man, that could be a little like, that could be a little rough. Like, you don't necessarily need somebody on every card. If they're not ready to fight, coaches, please, like, you don't need that. It's not going to help you to, you know, have your guy go out there and like, oh, we had 15 people on this card. Like, if they're not ready, they're not ready, man. For sure.
Yeah, well, I agree. I tell people all the time, like, if my team needs a year before their next competition, we're taking that year. I don't care, like, but coach, I've been training for 6 months. I know. I'm keeping track. Like, if you need time because I'm not seeing progress from this one to that one, and again, sometimes it's like, you should have done better. I'm going to get you a fight right away.
Yeah.
It's always case by case in my experience. But yeah, I've been part of gyms where they like, just get them on. Let's find 2 guys out there who can do the next card. And I'm like,
You know, it's weird too, though, because like, there's this line between if a guy comes in and wants to be a competitor and I spend a year with him and then he competes, and after a year of training, he competes one time, he goes, oh, you know, this sport's not for me. It does feel like you just wasted a year of your time. Mm-hmm. Where if he competed 2 months in, he would have been like, oh, this sport's not for me, and you wouldn't have wasted those additional like 10 months of training. But I'm with you. You know what I mean? Like, how much training is necessary for a guy to get ready? And obviously that is a case-by-case basis, like you said.
Yeah.
But man, it's complicated.
The ultimate question is, how do you turn someone from a martial artist into a fighter? And that kind of goes back to the PKB and some other conversations we were having earlier in the episode. It's how do we bridge that gap? And for some people, their answer is just feed them to the wolves, and like the weak will weed themselves out.
You know, Burton Richardson did this post the other day where he said, I don't want to mess this up. He said, not all successful martial artists are fighters, but all successful fighters are martial artists.
Right.
And I thought that was interesting. You know, like, it's not just nowadays, and Rich said this a while back, it's the level of debut fighting has become so high that it's not just who's the toughest guy anymore. You know, you got to be technically proficient. You have to have good cardiovascular health. Like, you know what I mean? You can't be super overweight. You know, unless you're a heavyweight, some heavyweight out there's like, I eat everything I want.
Yeah.
You have to be dedicated to the sport, I think, before you should be fighting. And maybe that's different for everyone.
And that's another reason why I wanted to bring Point Muay Thai around, because as someone who's coached for a long time now, I'm almost, 9-10 years into coaching. I've had so many students who want to fight, and then I'm like, no, you don't. Like, in my head, I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you're a good guy, you're a great student, but you don't want to fight. Maybe you want to take a couple fights. Okay, well, let's get you ready for that. Okay, you took a couple fights, cool. But when guys, especially young men, when they join a gym, they go, oh, I'm going to be the next superstar. I'm the next. And I'm like,
everybody walks in and thinks they're a champion.
Yeah, and they go 2 months, 3 months, 5 months. Why can't I do this? Why can't I fight? Why can't I do this? And I'm just like, well, it takes a lot more work than what you think.
I think we talked about that on a previous episode where we talked about the culture, the nature of the gym is that you don't have to be a fighter. You can love training. You can love training and you can come in. You don't have to be a competitor. That doesn't have to be for you. Like, we take every fight on a fight-by-fight basis. You're going to get pressured when you first come into the gym by people outside of the gym that are like, oh, man, you're training, yo. When are you going to fight, bro?
Well, that's what I mean when I'm saying the laymen care more about the glory than the people who actually train do. But to them, MMA is Conor McGregor, Jordan St. Pierre, and they're wondering why you are not. If you say you're MMA,
you fight MMA, bro. Why haven't I seen you in the UFC?
Yeah, if you're not Conor McGregor, then what's even the point of doing this? They don't see everything else that goes into the sport. They only see the, 9 minutes of a 3-round fight.
Yeah, I mean,
if they actually watch that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that Robert always says. Like, with amateur Florida Muay Thai, it's typically 6 minutes. 3 2-minute rounds. If you
6 minutes of glory.
Yeah, 6 minutes of glory. Like, if you are training for 4 months for 6 minutes of fighting, and it might not even be full 6 minutes. It might go 8 seconds, right? That's weird. That's complicated. Like, fighting is not the competition. Martial arts is not the competition. Like, if you are the best fighters in the world fight 1, 2, 3 times a year. They're training 52 weeks a year, man. Like, when's the last time Tyson Fury fought, and when's he fighting again? Hopefully Tyson Fury, if you're out there, you're training right now, hopefully, But we talk about this a lot, where we talk about, like, you're an athlete 52 weeks out of the year, and you have to fall in love with the training, because your competitive window is short.
Yeah, like, you have to fall in love with the training and the redundancies of, like, throwing a jab 1,000 times and 1,000 times more.
Yeah.
And changing the way you eat and finding the way, really changing the way your lifestyle is. And this is where I'm at right now, because, like, comparatively, like, from my first fight, from, like, again, no knowledge of PKB at the time, where it was so visceral, the fear that I had in the back, like, everyone laughing at me, but then, like, I got out there and kind of just did my thing.
No, I remember when Robert's first fight, he had been training. How long have you been training, Robert?
At the time?
Yeah.
At that time was like 11 years.
Okay, so Robert had been training for 11 years and had never like pulled the hammer on actually, like, fighting.
Went for it, yeah.
And when you go from, like, you've been training for 11 years and then you go to a fight, like, prior to PKB, there's no middle ground. You go from, like, maybe you've hard sparred. Hopefully you've hard sparred a few times before your fight, but now everything's on the line, and this guy can come out there and hurt you. Where with PKB, obviously you could get injured, but we've eliminated a lot of that possibility, or hopefully we've tried to eliminate a lot of that possibility.
Right, and that was like a whole lifestyle change too, where, like, before, again, no knowledge of PKB, so what did I do? Okay, I want a corner. Okay, I just want to get kind of close behind the scenes of what this is going to feel like.
Yeah,
okay.
let me be this guy's assistant so that I can at least be in the cage.
Which is a great step.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, like, you don't always have to be a fighter. I've done a couple seminars, and I often get the question, like, well, what's your favorite thing that you do? You've coached, you've fought, and I'm like, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Because I want to try some other stuff out.
Like, I think that I've judged now, I've done commentary now, I've obviously cornered fighters, and I've competed. Every one of those is so wildly different.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know which one. I know which one that I like the least, probably, which I shouldn't say. But I don't know which one that I like the best,
Mm-hmm.
But, man, the first time I ever cornered, I wanted to throw up the whole time. I had so much anxiety that I was like, ugh. But that's an interesting point, is that I try to make my fighters corner, maybe not primary, but like they're the secondary, like they're the assistant, just so that they have more ring time. They get more ring time. They're in the cage. They're in the ring. They're cage side. They're thinking more about what's going on.
We're there for the weight cut. We're not weight cutting, but we're just there hanging out.
You see it.
Yeah, a lot of hurry up
and you
and
can put yourself in that experience. How would I respond? This guy's acting like a wuss. Like, I wouldn't be like this. And then you experience it, and you're like, oh my god,
this is real.
I am that wuss.
This sucks.
Yeah.
I remember that first fight getting presented to me, right? I'm losing weight. I was 210 pounds. I got to 180. That was a big win for me, right, at the time. I get a text from Paul. Hey, I got good news and bad news. I got you a fight. Okay, what's the bad news? It's in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the nature of it,
At 160. And I guess what I learned, and what I'm still learning, is that there's never a perfect time.
No,
never.
All right, so we have talked about so much. We've gone so over in time.
Never a perfect time.
Never a perfect
Never a
time.
perfect time.
Rich, final thoughts, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Was there anything that we've missed that you needed to cover today?
If we did, I can't think of it now. No, I think this is awesome. I thank you for having me on. And like I said, not just about judging, but I think in general, martial arts needs to be talked about more, not just inside the gym, outside of it. I know like coaches that I talk with on, a bunch of personal level and stuff. We talk as professionals, we talk as friends. And I think that needs to be heard more by, students of the game, athletes. I think promoters need to be able to, go out there and talk to these guys as well, like outside of their own shows. So something like this podcast, this is one great step towards that.
I recently went to, like, I've been training now for like almost 20 years, like maybe more than 20 years actually. Yeah, more than 20 years I've been training. I'm an old folk, guys. I'm an old guy. When I go to seminars or I go to workshops or I go to like do a camp or something, the thing that I get the best return from is just being able to talk to other coaches and just getting perspectives, or being able to talk to someone that's judging, and they're saying like, man, you got to force breaks, because if you don't force breaks, it's hard for some judges to score. Like, oh, I don't know who's winning this. Oh, it's okay, that guy hit last. Okay, he won. I think it's really, really valuable.
Yeah.
Just for me as a coach, being able to like utilize this platform just to bring other coaches, bring judges in, bring, referees in, bring promoters in, and have conversations about what, how they see this game, because each person sees the game so much differently. All right. Final thoughts, Sammy Ryan, you got anything for me? I'm putting you on the spot here.
I think the main thing is we have to learn how to fall in love with martial arts and the development of skill for ourselves.
Yeah.
Not so much for the crowd.
There's so much external pressure when you start training at a school to compete. And man, you could love martial arts and never compete, Robert Spazzy Mangillo, final thoughts for me. What do you got for me? Anything good? Anything solid?
Man, I mean, like I learned a lot, like just from you being here. Like forcing breaks, I never kind of thought about that, right? Just leaving like a stamp on the judge's mind. But also just like the fact that you've judged, you now promote, you corner, you've competed, where it's like all these things are so vastly worlds apart, and they all come together in this one circle,
I think that you have to, I talk about being a coach like wearing a hat where it says coach on it, but I got to take that hat off sometimes and put on a hat that says student. And sometimes I take that hat off and put on a hat that says judge. And sometimes I take that hat off and I put on a hat that says commentator. Those are hats. I know so many people that once they put that hat on, that's all that's the only perspective they have anymore. Like they only see it as a coach, or they only see it as a judge, or they only see it as a referee, or they can't be a student. They can't learn anything else because now they're in charge. Mm-hmm. And I think I like to wear it as a hat, man. I like to look at it as a hat. Coaching is a hat. Like it's a cool hat. I think it's a really awesome hat, but it's also a heavy hat. Comes with a lot of responsibility. And if you make mistakes, you can really hurt people mentally and physically. Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Rich, thank you so much. Coach Rich Grindle on the podcast today. You can find him on Instagram. Coach, what is your Instagram handle?
It's at rich.grindle.
You can't mess that up.
Yeah, I keep it simple.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Guys, go ahead online and we'll have in the notes as well. We'll have all of the information. I want to take a moment to thank you so much. Obviously, if you want to buy a cool, Robert, you want to show your Combat Theory shirt to the camera, buy a cool Combat Theory shirt on our combattheory.com store. That helps more than anything. Follow the lovely Sammy Ryan at Sammy, SAMIRYANNE on all of your social media. And as always, guys, thanks so much. Keep your training fun. Have an amazing day.